Hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Oracles. So today, let's do some technical analysis together and take a look at where the price of some of the major cryptocurrencies might move in the next few days. So let's start with Bitcoin as we always do. Let's take a look at what happened at the beginning of the year. We've seen the price ramping up massively against some other assets and against the stock market. And we've seen it trending in this upward channel all the way up to 28,000, and we've seen a flash crash in mid-March, 11th of March, all the way down to 18k. Now we've seen a very strong bounce back and no retrace from that point onwards, so this is a really good signal that we might expect a retest on some of the lower levels. Now, next thing we want to look at is the support and resistance areas. So we definitely have a support zone that we consolidated at about $21,500, and we definitely have a resistance zone at the 25,000 level. So what we can expect Bitcoin to do now is to retrace back to the previous resistance zone and turn it into support. And that would mean a further 10% drop in price from where we are today. 5% drop in price, which is a pretty good retrace back to that level. Now, a couple of more things that we can look at is definitely the moving averages. So you can see here, I got the 20 days in red and the 50 days in orange. And you can see the 10 days acting as a decent support indicator. And when you broke that, we usually traced all the way back to the orange line, which is the 20 days. So by looking at that from where we are today, we have about 3% down to the 20 days and another 10% down to the 50 days. So I think, and once again, just educational purposes, guys, this is my personal opinion, but I think, the most likely move from Bitcoin at this point is probably to retest this 25,000 level. And then assuming nothing else crazy goes on in the market, we will probably keep going for the upside. Unless, of course, we fall into a recession. Definitely don't forget to check out our newsletter and our website, cryptooracles.xyz. And you can find everything about our macroeconomic outlook and all our takes on what might happen in the current financial and economical space. Now, back to our TA. So here, another thing that I would like to look at for a moment is the RSI, which is a momentum indicator. So how the price is momenting, what's the strength. So one thing that we noticed was the RSI trending lower and the price trending upwards, which is usually a bearish signal. So we should expect some retrace. Now that started happening in mid-Feb and it continued all the way to mid-March. And in the lower time frame, we're now seeing a similar thing. So if I zoom in a little bit more to the 4 hours in Bitcoin, and we take out a few lines here. One thing that you will notice is the RSI here is now downtrending. Let me make this more visible. So you can see here the RSI is now downtrending, and it went all the way from 84 all the way down to 50. But in the same time frame, the price was uptrending. So here again is a bearish signal that we've seen on a much bigger scale. So let me zoom out again so you can compare. So here we've seen the same thing. RSI downtrending, price uptrending in the same time frame, and then boom, the price went down and retested some of the lower levels. So here on the lower time frame on the 4 hours, we can expect something similar to happen, and that would also match the same narrative of these $25,000 retest. Now, another thing that we like to look at, if I zoom back out again one more time, is the MACD line is a very good indicator for entry and exit points. MACD line is the blue line, the signal line is the red line. So whenever the MACD line crosses below, then it's the bearish signal, the sell signal. Whenever it crosses above, it's buy signal. Now, if you look at what happened in the past, we can see here on the 29th of January, MACD line crossing below the signal line, and shortly after, we've seen a drop in price of about 10%. And then we've seen the same thing on the 23rd of February, and then if we mark from the 23rd of February onwards, we've seen a price drop of about 20%. Now, the MACD line crossed back up during this big pump, so we exclude that one. We have another about 15-20% upside, and it looks like it's about to cross below again. So this would be another confirmation of a possible retest of a lower level. So this is it for Bitcoin. I think for now we're going to monitor it closely, and definitely we're going to keep an eye on what the Fed is doing. And once again, definitely check out our newsletter and check out the other videos on our channel if you want to know a little bit more about what's going on with the macro outlook and the current state of the financial world. But let's keep talking about cryptocurrencies and technical analysis, let's take a look at something else in our list. So I'm going to improvise a little bit here, guys, but bear with me. So some of the requests that we got on Twitter was to talk about Ethereum. So Ethereum, of course, all the cryptocurrencies are somewhat related. So if Bitcoin crashes tomorrow, we would expect Ethereum to also follow, although they have slight differences, definitely driven by market cap and volatility in price. So here, Ethereum has been trending in this sort of range in between the $1,400 and $1,600, and it just broke above and is now sort of retesting the 1668, 1670, $100. Now, where do we see going from here? Very similar on the MACD line is just now crossing the trigger line, or the pardon me, the indication line. So we could expect this to retrace. Another thing that I usually like to look at is the Fibonacci levels. So if we take the low and the high here, the Fibonacci level would indicate the most recurrent levels at 38, 50, and 61. So if we look at 61 level, we're back down on the lower level of the channel. If we look at the 50, we're kind of like mid of this channel. So we can expect a possible retrace of Ethereum to probably look something, let me get this again, to probably look something like this. So this will depend, of course, on what Bitcoin is doing at the same time. But at the moment, most signals are now signaling a sell signal. So if you look at the RSI, it's the same story here. You can see RSI is downtrending, and in the same time frame, if you look at the average price, it's clearly uptrending. So we do expect a correction on Ethereum as well. And if you look at the magnitude of the correction, it seems a little bit smaller than what we might see on Bitcoin. Now let's take a couple of look at altcoins. So let's look, for example, at Matic. Let me find it. There we go. So let's take a look at Matic. So here we have a different picture on altcoins. I think most altcoins retrace from some of the previous heights already. So we had a couple of signals here that we're interested in, which was this 125, which is clearly a resistant level now for Matic. And then we had a very interesting entry that we flagged on Twitter. So once again, don't forget to come and follow us on Twitter. But here you can clearly see that Matic it clearly has a very strong support area at about 103, which also matches the Fibonacci level for 61. So if we zoom in a little bit more, you can clearly see here, if I extend this green line, actually lower it down a little bit. Pardon me, let me trace a new line. So if we look at this, you can see, oh, there we go, just crossing my signals. So if you see the white line here, you can clearly see this used to be our resistance. We broke it upwards, and it's now become our support 1 time and 2 times. Actually, very, very clean bounce from Matic from here. So, depending on the narrative, if we see a retrace in Bitcoin, the most likely outcome for most altcoins will be to follow. And for Matic, the first level that we have, it's the let me remove some noise here, guys. It's the 94 cents level. So 94 cents has been a resistance and a support twice already. So that would be our first level. So this means Matic will retrace by about another 10%. And then after that, we're all the way back to 76. If you look at the upside clearly shows, the next possible retrace level on the upside would be going all the way back up to 125, although I think this is unlikely given the current scenario and given the current state of Bitcoin. Now, if we look in a little bit more, and I think most altcoins look exactly the same, we have seen a recent retrace. The RSI indicates a bit of a balance in between the bulls and the bears here, so nothing to see. I think right now we would wait to see a resolution and see what Bitcoin does before entering any of the altcoin markets. But let's take a look at a couple of more that I found interesting. So Near is another one that I thought was interesting to look at. Extremely strong project. We made a video in the past in our channel, so definitely go and check it out. So here at Near, you can clearly see, and I'm going to trace another line here, the 180 level was a very important resistance that we turned into support, and then we nicely bounced back out of that. Now if we zoom out a little bit more on the daily, you can clearly see the bounce here, and actually if we currently extend this line a little bit more, there you go. So you can see here resistance, we turn it into support, and we bounce back from it twice. So where do we go from here? So if Bitcoin does retrace, then the next logical level for NEAR to go to is this 185, which would mean a further downside of about 15% on NEAR, which is definitely feasible. So depending on which side of the trades you're taking, whether you're shorting or longing, I would not enter the market at this stage. So this clearly signals that are telling us that we might see further downside. Definitely something that I like to see on this one, which is different from what I talked about before. It's the RSI has been downtrending the whole time, although the price has been kind of chopping around and now caught up with the RSI. So we've been downtrending now for a solid nearly month and a half. So a couple of more I want to show you, I think is interesting. Some of the exchanging, so CRO or crypto.com is an interesting one. Let's see if I can find it here. So this one nearly retraced all the way down to its previous lows. And what you can see here, if I zoom in a little bit more in 4 hours, was a really good signal and a really good indicator here was the Fibonacci levels again, a 61. So perfectly hit the 61 level. So, you know, if we're looking for the upside or you're DCAing into your portfolio, which means you're slowly buying in, this is definitely a good buy region. At the same time, you know, if we zoom out a little bit more and we consider what Bitcoin might do and how it might move, we might look more towards this level at the 0.61. So you're probably, you know, if you're thinking about going long on a CRO, you're probably going to wait for another 7-8% on the downside before this becomes an interesting level. And then what I would expect to see from here is some chopping around, and then depending on the rest of the markets, a possible retake of the previous highs. So let's take a look at a couple more just for the sake. So AVAX actually been really good. So AVAX has been quite surprisingly strong compared to some of the other altcoins. So it did touch and it did hit one of my entry points down here at the $14 level. So you can see here, and then if we trace a trend line again, this is like very, very clean trend lines. You can see here it used to be a resistance. We turn it into support and we bounce back from it. And you can see down here as well, if you look at the MACD line, you just had a nice cross upwards. If you look at the RSI on the daily, we went all the way down to nearly below the 30 trend line, signal line. So really good entry point for AVAX here in mid-March after the dip. Not much movement from there compared to Bitcoin. So, you know, if you look at the Bitcoin chart, Bitcoin moved much higher from the dip, but AVAX kind of chopped around and stayed strong. So I think if we look at a possible downside for Bitcoin, AVAX will most likely retrace as well, about 10% to this level. We now kind of establish a pretty strong support here. So most likely, if we bounce from the levels, you're probably looking at a similar bounce to what we've seen in the past. So this is a good entry point at the $14, $50. Let's take a look at a couple more. Let's see what we got here. Anything interesting that gets my eye? I think we can look at maybe some of the gaming and metaverse coins. So this one's definitely, you know, lower market cap, much higher volatility. So if we zoom out a little bit more, we were on this downtrending channel all the way to the beginning of 2023. Then this have seen nearly 6 times, 6x. So definitely massive spike in price. Although now we are back onto this downtrend. So if we trace a couple of lines just to give us an idea, you have a downtrending channel. So it's trading within this channel, and I would assume that most coins in the space are usually very similar. So we've seen 1 and 2 rejections of the price. We've seen 1 and 2 bounces from lower levels. So if this was to continue in the same fashion, oops, let me redraw that. What I would assume it could happen would be something like this, or we keep chopping downwards. So, you know, a good entry point would be at about the 2 cents for Gala, which is, you know, a pretty significant drop from where we're at today of nearly 40%. Now, clearly, we are way more zoomed out than we did with other coins, but it is not unlikely considering that this will still be higher than the beginning of the year, and it would probably be a pretty decent support area. So if we trace here, see guys, this is like technical analysis is pretty solid with math, or pretty logical. So you can see here, I just randomly drawn that line just following the downtrend channel, and I ended up exactly at a previous support level down here at the 2 cents. So from Gala, and if you're interested more in, you know, the gaming sector and NFT related sector, then this is probably one of the most likely outlooks. If we zoom in a little bit more, just to give you a different view on the 4 hours, yeah, we have found some support here I would say probably need to trace a bit of a zone, to be honest, still a little bit better. So if we trace a bit of a support zone, maybe, we have some sort of zone here and it looks like we're trending in a triangle. So most of these triangles usually break for the upside. So, if it wasn't for the fact that Bitcoin, it's clearly due a retest of some lower levels, looking at this triangle, you might think you might be able to get a bit of a squeeze out on the upside, which would signal a pretty good entry for nearly 20% profit. So interesting, but in my opinion, quite unlikely. We're probably going to see further downside all the way to at least 3 cents, which is, the previous support level, and then possibly all the way down to 2 cents. So I think this is it, guys, for today. Thank you so much for listening and sticking around on our channel. Definitely don't forget to click the subscribe button and join all our social channels. Join our Twitter, Discord, and Telegram chats. Feel free to ask any questions, and don't forget to check out our newsletter and our monthly call happening next week. Thank you, guys, and I will see you soon.